Okay, let's just jump right in. Global trade.
Hmm.
When you hear that phrase, I think it conjures these images of massive container ships, maybe faraway ports.
Complicated economic charts.
Exactly, complicated economic theories. But the truth is, global trade isn't abstract at all.
Not in the slightest.
It shapes almost every single part of our modern lives, right down to the components inside the device you're listening on right now.
That's exactly it. And for you, our listener, trying to understand this network isn't just about economics. It's really about preparation.
Preparation for what, exactly?
Well, we are absolutely entering a new, very dynamic economic era. I mean, the traditional trade patterns are shifting right under our feet.
Because of technology, geopolitics.
All of it. Technology, politics, environmental pressures. So our mission for this deep dive is to give you a shortcut. A really distilled analytical perspective to being supremely well-informed. We're going to focus on the major global powers dictating this change. The new routes, both physical and digital, and the disruptive technology that's changing how everything flows.
That sounds like a journey we need a roadmap for. We're starting with geopolitics, and we're going to end up talking about algorithms and high-speed rail.
It's all interconnected,
Yeah.
and we have to start with the foundational elements, right? The new economic stage.
Okay.
When we look at the flow of global commerce today, the sources all clearly identify three dominant global players.
Mm-hmm.
And each one has a very unique economic strength that determines its role. Sometimes those roles are complementary, but sometimes they're in fierce competition.
And the first one, the one that really rebuilt the world's supply chain, has to be China.
Without a doubt.
We always hear that term, the world's factory.
Yeah.
How did China actually earn and maintain that title?
That title, that core identity, is the result of 4 decades of just relentless strategic government-led investment.
So this wasn't an accident.
Oh, not at all. China didn't just stumble into this role. They looked at what the emerging global economy needed and then just built the capacity to meet that need. We're talking about a massive, dedicated investment in physical infrastructure.
And when you say infrastructure, you mean?
Think about the scale. Roads, automated deep water ports that can handle the largest ships in the world, specialized factories, all built to an incredible standard of efficiency and interconnection.
So it's not just about having a factory. It's about having the entire system, the trains, the trucks, the electricity, all ready to connect that factory to a global shipping route, like instantly.
Exactly. That physical foundation is what enables the key concept here, which is producing goods at scale.
Right.
And this is more nuanced than just quickly and cheaply.
Okay.
Producing at scale means you've standardized your processes so intensely that the marginal cost of producing the next item becomes almost nothing.
I see. So if you make one of something, it's expensive.
Very. But if you're set up to make 1 billion identical standardized products, the cost per unit just plummets. And China mastered that art faster and more affordably than any other country in history.
That distinction, the mastery of reducing the marginal cost through standardization, that's the real muscle.
It is, but China isn't content to just be the manufacturing floor. They are actively, and I'd say often aggressively, building connections beyond their own borders.
And that's where the Belt and Road Initiative comes in, the BRI.
Precisely. This is not just an economic project, it's a statement of geopolitical intent.
It's often called the modern Silk Road, right? This huge infrastructure project across Asia, Africa, Europe. What's the real strategic goal behind building railways and ports in other countries?
The primary goal is to secure and solidify the trade pathways that China itself relies on.
To get their goods out faster.
To get them out faster and to bypass traditional maritime choke points. But there's a crucial secondary layer here that you, the listener, really need to understand, and that's the geopolitical aspect. The BRI involves huge loans and investments in partner nations.
Often developing countries.
Yes, to build this infrastructure for them.
And what we've seen happen, and what's caused a lot of concern, is that sometimes those loans are structured so that if a country can't repay,
they are forced to hand over control of the asset to China.
which leads to what people call debt traps.
That's a critical point that the sources raise. The classic example is the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. When Sri Lanka couldn't meet its debt obligations, China acquired a 99-year lease on the port.
Giving them a strategic, permanent foothold right in the Indian Ocean.
Exactly. And that kind of arrangement has caused significant pushback from Western nations, from the G7, who see the BRI not just as trade, but as strategic influence building. It's an effort to shape the physical map of logistics and gain political leverage.
Okay, so China establishes the manufacturing base and then builds the physical routes to move the products. Now let's pivot. The second major player, the United States. If China is defined by scale, what's the defining muscle the U.S. flexes?
The U.S. economy is defined by its role as the engine of innovation.
A totally different kind of strength.
Completely different. It's based on knowledge, intellectual property, and cutting-edge tech, not pure production volume. So while China focuses on producing the physical thing cheaply,
The U.S. focuses on producing the idea that makes the thing possible, or makes it better.
that's it. The sources highlight things like highly complex software, advanced medical equipment, biotech, and most crucially, semiconductors.
The chips that power everything.
These are high-value, high-margin exports.
So they're not commodities.
Not at all. They're intangible assets or key components that dictate how every other product on the planet functions. The U.S. advantage comes from its ability to attract and fund breakthrough research and then turn that science into mass-market platforms.
Like operating systems, cloud computing.
The specialized machinery you need to make the most advanced microchips. All of that.
Which means the U.S. doesn't always need a giant cargo ship for its exports. I mean, many of their most valuable exports move instantly as digital data.
Precisely. And this gets amplified by what the U.S. also exports: soft power.
So culture.
Culture. The movies, the music, the globally recognized brands, the digital platforms we use every single day. Think about it. A teenager watching a U.S. movie on a U.S.-designed platform.
Instantly creates global demand for a U.S. brand or a certain lifestyle product.
And that matters immensely because that cultural penetration creates a built-in market demand. It strengthens America's economic reach without relying on tariffs or treaties. It makes consumers want to buy American goods even if they're made somewhere else.
And we can't forget the foundation of all of this, the global financial world.
We absolutely cannot. The stability of the whole trading system is anchored by the U.S. financial structure. The U.S. dollar is the world's dominant reserve currency.
Meaning most big international deals, oil, gold, commodities, they're priced and settled in dollars.
That's right. So even if a company in Korea is buying components from a factory in Taiwan, that transaction often happens through the U.S. banking system using the dollar.
That institutional trust, that's a massive economic export in itself, isn't it?
It is. It allows businesses to move money safely, quickly, and reliably across borders using established systems like SWIFT. That financial architecture is a huge competitive advantage. It's the lubricant for global trade.
Okay, so we have the manufacturing giant, China, and the innovation engine, the U.S. That brings us to our third major player. Where does Europe fit in this, and how does it wield its influence?
Europe carves out its own very powerful role through a focus on stability, standards, and sustainability.
Okay.
Where China and the U.S. often prioritize speed or a technological breakthrough, Europe prioritizes quality, regulation, and ethical sourcing.
That reputation for quality is just built into European brands.
Yeah.
The source mentioned German precision engineering in cars or Italian luxury fashion.
Okay.
You pay more, but you expect it to last for decades.
That's Europe's historical strength. But their modern lever of power is standard setting. Europe is becoming the global leader in setting the rules for the future of trade.
Particularly around sustainability and environmental impact.
Exactly. And they're essentially using the size of their massive consumer market, one of the largest and wealthiest in the world, to dictate global behavior.
That's a crucial concept.
It is. If the European Union decides that only goods produced with minimal environmental impact can be imported, or if they bring in something like the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism,
The CBAM, yeah.
then suddenly every company in the world, whether they're in China or the US or anywhere else, has to adapt.
They have to change their manufacturing processes, their energy sources, their entire supply chain, just to meet the European standard.
If they don't, they lose access to hundreds of millions of high-spending consumers.
So Europe isn't just reacting to trade, it's actually shaping the moral and environmental rules of trade itself.
It is. It means sustainability is no longer some niche concern. It's a basic requirement for market access.
And that dictates what environmentally friendly and ethically sourced trade even looks like.
And that push for standards fundamentally shifts where investments flow and, critically, which trade routes get prioritized.
Which is our cue to transition.
It's the perfect transition into our next segment.
That's a perfect hinge. So we've established the who trades. Now let's dive into the where and the how. The actual physical pathways that ships and trains use are not static. They're being actively redesigned.
Based on economic priorities, technology, and let's be honest, geopolitical competition.
Right. And this leads us directly to one of the most significant emerging routes mentioned in the source material, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor.
IMEX.
IMEC is highly strategic. It's often seen as a counterbalance to China's Belt and Road, but it's focused on rapid, high-standard trade between major economies.
The whole objective is to efficiently connect India's growing manufacturing capacity to Europe's high-value consumer market.
And the mechanism for doing that is a great example of what you call multimodal transport.
A phenomenal practical example. It's a sophisticated system that uses more than one type of transport to get the job done.
So lay it out for us. How does a container get from, say, Mumbai to a port in Greece using IMC?
Okay, so it starts by ship from a major Indian port to a port in the UAE or Saudi Arabia. That's mode 1.
Okay.
There, the container is quickly unloaded and put onto a sophisticated rail network. That's mode 2 for the land journey across the Arabian Peninsula.
A high-speed rail corridor.
A high-speed rail corridor.
Yeah.
After that, it's loaded back onto another ship mode 3 for the final leg across the Mediterranean to Europe.
So instead of a ship taking that traditional, much longer route all the way around the Arabian Peninsula through the Suez Canal, a route that's prone to delays and political risk, you're just punching straight through the middle with a train.
Exactly. And why is this necessary? Because it's faster, it's often less vulnerable, and critically, it's a highly scalable alternative. In a world where production is at scale and supply chain resilience is everything, speed is literally money.
So cutting transit time by even 10 days lets companies react faster to the market, reduces their inventory costs.
Drastically. The emergence of IMS shows that trade today is about creating these stable, high-speed logistical highways between the world's major economic centers.
India's manufacturing, the Middle East's financial strength, and Europe's consumption power. It's a direct link.
Absolutely. Now, while these east-west corridors get all the headlines, we also have to talk about the immense and often overlooked potential of the South.
You're talking about the rise of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
For decades, the story about Africa in global trade was all about raw materials extraction. Minerals, oil, timber going out to be manufactured somewhere else.
That narrative is undergoing a dramatic shift. We're seeing growth hotspots in places like Nigeria, Kenya, and Ghana leading the way.
And it's more than just upgrading their ports, right?
Yeah. It is a profound structural change. Not only are they upgrading ports and roads, but the biggest game changer is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
AFCFTA. Explain the significance of that for our listener.
AFCFTA is designed to create a single market across most of the African continent.
Okay.
This means reducing or just getting rid of tariffs and barriers for goods traded between African nations. This instantly creates the world's largest single consumer market.
Uniting 1.3 billion people with a combined GDP in the trillions.
That is a tectonic shift. It means Africa's role is changing in two ways. First, it's becoming a key manufacturing location for goods consumed within Africa,
Driving its own industrialization.
and second, it's evolving from being just a source of raw materials into a massive, growing consumer market in its own right.
So global companies now want to bring goods in to sell to a rising middle class in Lagos or Nairobi.
Exactly. And that internal growth demands better internal logistics, not just better ports facing outward.
Right. This diversification of both sourcing and consumption, it has to increase Africa's negotiating power globally.
And it enhances world supply chain resilience, which, again, ties perfectly into that theme of avoiding single points of failure.
That internal growth is key. Now, we've talked a lot about physical corridors, ships, trains, ports. But the fastest and maybe most important routes are totally invisible.
The invisible routes of digital trade.
This forces us to really redefine what we even mean by trade. It's not just physical containers anymore.
This is a crucial distinction for the modern economy, and it links right back to the U.S. as the engine of innovation. Digital trade is the instant cross-border movement of intangible goods and services.
Which includes what? Massive data sets, financial services, software subscriptions.
Streaming entertainment, the proprietary code that runs advanced machinery.
All of it.
The speed and volume are just staggering. I mean, think about the fiber optic cables laid across the ocean floor. That's the physical backbone of this digital world. This flow of information is trade, and it's bypassing customs and port delays completely.
And since digital services are a huge part of the U.S. export portfolio, the entire modern economic machine, from inventory management to paying for the goods, depends on the instant, reliable movement of this data.
Right. If a physical shipment takes 6 weeks to cross the ocean, the financial data, the tracking information, the compliance documents, all of that moved in milliseconds.
Which creates a profound dependence on secure digital infrastructure, but also raises new questions about data governance and regulation.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to the technology that's driving this whole complex system.
That's a perfect shift. So while routes expand and digital trade accelerates, moving physical goods still faces huge challenges. And these problems are being tackled with disruptive tech.
We need to anchor this with a term we use all the time: logistics.
Right. It's often simplified to just shipping stuff, but that doesn't do it justice.
Not at all.
It's the detailed planning, the execution, the management of how goods are moved, stored, and delivered from the factory to your front door. It's the operational intelligence of the supply chain.
And that operational intelligence is increasingly powered by artificial intelligence, AI. The sources are very clear on this. AI is fundamentally reshaping logistics, specifically by giving companies the power of predictive demand forecasting.
And this links right back to the U.S. innovation strength, developing these algorithms.
It does. AI systems can analyze just vast amounts of data: social media trends, local weather forecasts, geopolitical reports, real-time inventory.
Historical sales patterns.
All of it. And the output is a predictive model with incredible accuracy. If a company knows exactly how many items they'll sell in a market 3 months from now,
They can ship precisely that quantity.
minimizing the two great sins of logistics: overstocking, which is expensive, and understocking, which means lost sales. AI makes ordering dynamic and precise.
And then, working with AI, you have automation. Robots.
Yes, we're seeing automation taking over the physical movement in warehouses and at ports.
This addresses that need for speed and accuracy at scale, which plays right into China's manufacturing strength.
Perfectly. Advanced robotics, automated guided vehicles, massive cranes, they can all work 24/7 without getting tired, sorting goods faster, more accurately, and safer than a human ever could.
So the intelligence of AI and the physical efficiency of automation work together.
They make supply chains faster, cheaper, and much more reliable.
Reliability is the key word. But despite all this tech, global trade still faces huge, persistent challenges, which we call supply chain disruptions.
A supply chain disruption is basically anything that interrupts or halts the normal flow of goods. It can be a massive geopolitical event like sanctions.
Or something much more physical and accidental. I mean, we all remember the impact of that one massive container ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal.
That was the perfect and frankly terrifying illustration of vulnerability. The Suez blockage showed the entire world how reliant the global economy is on these highly optimized shipping lanes that flow through just a handful of narrow channels.
When one point fails, the ripple effect is immense. Billions of dollars in goods, delayed chaos for months.
Absolutely. And that experience taught the world a very hard lesson, which drove the universal adoption of a new core strategy: diversification.
That's the key takeaway.
It is. Diversification means intentionally setting up your business to avoid relying on any single point of failure.
Not just one supplier, not one factory.
And certainly not one single shipping route for a critical component.
It's the classic don't put all your eggs in one basket idea.
Yeah.
But applied to the entire global manufacturing process.
Right. So instead of relying only on that one super cheap factory in Southeast Asia for a microchip, a company might now have contracts with suppliers in Vietnam, a partner in Mexico, and maybe a facility closer to home.
The immediate cost might be a little higher.
It might be. But the long-term benefit is tremendous. It builds resilience. And resilience for our listeners is the ability of a system to anticipate, absorb, adapt to, and then rapidly recover from problems.
So if a natural disaster hits one region, a diversified company doesn't just shut down. It reroutes the orders to its other suppliers while the first one recovers.
That continuity of supply is worth far more than the slight initial cost increase. Resilience is the new optimization metric.
And diversification is intrinsically linked to the biggest long-term challenge and opportunity of all, isn't it? The environmental imperative.
And the critical movement towards sustainable trade.
This is forcing a fundamental and expensive rethink of everything, driven largely by those aggressive standards being set by Europe.
At its core, it means aggressively addressing the carbon footprint of trade.
Can you define carbon footprint for us?
The carbon footprint is just the total amount of greenhouse gases, the pollution created through the entire life cycle of a product, from sourcing the raw materials to manufacturing, packaging, and, crucially, shipping it all over the world.
And global logistics, especially maritime shipping and air freight, are a huge part of global emissions.
A very significant chunk. And this is where market pressure becomes the enforcer.
Hmm.
The sources confirm that consumers today actively prefer products marketed as eco-friendly. This isn't a niche market anymore. It's a massive, mainstream, demand-shaping corporate decision.
So that consumer preference, plus the European regulations.
Is forcing companies to invest massively in cleaner, greener shipping methods. We're seeing new fuels like methanol for container ships, huge investment in renewable energy to power the factories themselves.
It's not just about compliance anymore, it's a competitive advantage.
It is. If your company can credibly market a product as having a 50% lower carbon footprint than your competitor, that's a huge differentiator.
And it connects back to resilience, too. Relying on volatile fossil fuels is a financial risk.
A huge one. Investing in green technology isn't just good for the planet. It reduces your exposure to fluctuating oil prices and rising carbon taxes. It makes the supply chain both greener and more financially predictable, more resilient.
Okay, so we've covered the players, the new routes, and the technologies. It's an incredibly dynamic picture. Now let's shift focus directly to you, the listener. What specific skills does this massive changing economic environment demand from you?
The central idea is this. The future belongs to the adaptable professional. The economy is changing so fast with AI, new routes, sustainability standards. The skills you rely on have to evolve beyond just technical knowledge.
And the first skill, which remains the unbreakable backbone of global commerce, is English.
It remains the undisputed main language of global business. Despite the rise of other economic powers, English is the lingua franca for that transaction layer.
The legal documents, technical specs, customs declarations.
Complex logistical coordination, high-level financial transfers, all of it.
And this isn't about literary fluency, is it? It's about functional mastery.
Exactly. If you're aiming for a career in logistics, coordinating a shipment through IM or in IT, coding a platform for digital trade or in finance, English connects you instantly and reliably to your counterparts everywhere.
It levels the playing field for individuals around the world.
It dramatically expands your access to career opportunities. It's the essential communication bandwidth.
The second essential skill, given the rise of AI and those invisible digital routes, has to be digital literacy.
Absolutely. As trade gets more digitized and complex data models dictate everything, just being comfortable with email and spreadsheets isn't enough anymore.
So what does digital literacy mean now?
It means functional competence with data analysis, comfort with complex cloud platforms, and crucially, understanding how the AI tools driving the logistics industry actually work.
It's about leveraging that data stream. It's not enough to know the AI predicted you should stock 5,000 units.
You need to be able to interact with the platform, understand the model's assumptions, and make an informed decision when it gives you an unusual result.
So you're future-proofing yourself.
Yeah.
You're using the tools to enhance your decisions, not waiting to be replaced by them.
Precisely. And finally, a skill that the sources call a superpower in this new global economy, cultural knowledge.
This is probably the most underrated skill, but it's where so many disruptions begin.
It is. It's not just about knowing different holidays. It's about understanding the deep, nuanced differences in how people from different countries prioritize relationships, communicate conflict, and approach negotiations.
Think about managing that diversified supply chain we talked about, with partners in Ghana, Mexico, and Vietnam.
Success depends not only on fast trains and good software, but on building trust and navigating profoundly different communication styles.
Cultural knowledge lets you avoid offense, interpret subtle cues, and build the long-term relationships that resilient supply chains depend on.
It is genuinely a competitive advantage. It mitigates the risk of misinterpretation, streamlines contracts, and allows global teams to move faster and more effectively. In an era defined by diversification, managing human relationships across borders is indispensable.
That combination of hard, technical skills English, digital literacy, with high emotional and cultural intelligence.
That's what defines the adaptable professional needed for this new era.
We've covered a remarkable amount of ground today, from the three giants defying the global economy,
China, the US, and Europe,
to the revolutionary new physical and digital routes, and the skills you need to succeed.
Before we leave you with a final thought, let's quickly review the essential vocabulary from this deep dive. These are the concepts that really define the future of global commerce.
Okay, first up was infrastructure.
The massive physical systems, roads, railways, ports, that underpin all physical trade.
Right. Then the supply chain.
That's the entire end-to-end process of making and delivering a product, from raw material to the final shelf.
Third, resilience.
The key goal of diversification, the ability to absorb, adapt to, and recover quickly from problems.
And finally, sustainability.
Protecting the environment for the future by reducing the carbon footprint of every product, which is making trade greener and more predictable.
We encourage you to use these words and concepts to really think about how they apply to the businesses and products you interact with every single day.
This has been a fascinating look into a world undergoing just rapid seismic change. The interplay between manufacturing power, high-value innovation, and the regulatory pressure for greener, faster trade is just relentless.
So here's our final thought for you to consider and explore on your own, building on everything we've discussed today. Given the massive global emphasis on sustainability, the rise of powerful new corridors like IMA and AFCFTA, and this urgent need for supply chain diversification, what specific local industry in your country is either most vulnerable or, conversely, most uniquely poised for immense growth as these global dynamics continue to shift?
Think about where your local economy relies heavily on a single, distant import source, or where your local companies are already leading in green tech or unique digital innovation.
That's where the future will unfold most rapidly. Always stay curious, keep learning, and keep asking the big questions.
That's the only way to navigate this incredibly complex, interconnected world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.